Imagine walking back toward your camp thousands of years ago. The sun has disappeared below the horizon. The fire is burning low, and somewhere beyond its light, something is moving through the darkness. You cannot see it, you cannot hear it, but the animal beside you can. It lifts its head, its ears turn toward the trees. A low growl begins in its throat. Within seconds, the entire camp is awake. Spears are raised. Children are pulled closer to the fire. Whatever was hiding beyond the trees decides to leave. In our timeline, that animal eventually became the dog, humanity's hunting partner, guard, worker, companion, and oldest animal ally. But what if that partnership never formed? What if wolves remained wolves? No sheepdogs, no guard dogs, no sled dogs, no search and rescue dogs, no pets waiting beside the front door. Human civilization would still emerge, but reaching the modern world could be slower, more dangerous, and far more labor-intensive. Today, we're rewriting history. Today, we're asking, what if humans never domesticated dogs? To understand how much would change, we need to go back long before cities, farms, or written history. Humans survived in small communities of hunters and gatherers. Every day was a struggle for food, safety, and territory. Wolves followed many of the same herds humans hunted. At first, the two species were probably rivals, but over generations, some wolves may have begun approaching human camps for scraps. The most aggressive were driven away. The calmer animals remained near the edge of the firelight. Those wolves gained food. Humans gained animals that could hear danger, smell prey, and eventually cooperate during hunts. Slowly, the relationship deepened. The wolves changed, and so did we. But in this alternate timeline, that process never happens. Perhaps humans kill every wolf that approaches. Perhaps wolves remain too aggressive. Or perhaps the two species stay separated long enough for the opportunity to disappear. Whatever the reason, wolves remain wild, and humans face the prehistoric world alone. The first difference would appear during the hunt. Early humans were already skilled hunters. They used weapons, traps, teamwork, and a detailed understanding of animal behavior. Without dogs, humanity would not suddenly starve. But some hunts would become less efficient. Imagine a wounded deer escaping into thick forest. A hunter can follow footprints, broken branches, and drops of blood. But if the animal crosses rocky ground or moves through water, the trail may disappear. A dog could continue following its scent. Without one, the hunters might return empty-handed. That single failure would not destroy a community, but repeated over generations, it would mean more time spent searching for food and more risk taken on every hunt. Nighttime would also become more dangerous. Without dogs acting as an early warning system, humans would need larger fires, more defensible camps, and more people standing guard. And every solution would carry the same cost: human labor. Every person watching the darkness was one less person hunting, gathering food, making tools, caring for children, or sleeping before the next day's work. For a small band of hunters, that burden might be manageable. Once humans began raising livestock, it would become much harder to ignore. Thousands of years later, humans begin farming. Agriculture would still develop. People did not need dogs to plant grain, build irrigation systems, or harvest crops. Villages would still emerge. Populations would still grow. Cities would eventually rise. But raising sheep, goats, and cattle would become more difficult. Livestock had to be moved, controlled, and protected from predators. In our timeline, dogs helped with all three. Some guided animals across open land. Others guarded the herd from wolves, bears, and thieves. Without them, people would have to perform those jobs themselves. Imagine two neighboring communities, each owning several hundred sheep. In our timeline, a small number of shepherds working with trained dogs can manage a flock across open ground. In this alternate timeline, the same flock requires more people, stronger enclosures, and constant protection. One community can send extra workers to trade, build, farm, or fight. The other must keep them beside the herd. Across generations, that difference could determine which community becomes wealthier, which grows faster, and which controls the surrounding land. Livestock would stay closer to villages. Fences and stone pens would become more important. Large herds would be more expensive to maintain. Pastoral societies would still exist, but many might remain smaller or more settled. That could begin to alter migration and trade. Across the grasslands of Eurasia, mobile communities historically moved large herds over long distances. In this timeline, those herds are harder to protect and more expensive to control. Nomadic societies still develop, especially after humans domesticate the horse. But some maintain smaller herds, travel in larger groups, or follow shorter routes. Trade networks could grow more slowly. Settlements that became important stops for traveling herders might remain minor villages. No single empire would automatically disappear because dogs were never domesticated. But over centuries, smaller herds and slower migrations could shift the balance between mobile societies and settled farming states. Some kingdoms might face fewer raids, others might lose valuable trade. History would still unfold, but along different roads. In colder regions, the effect could be even more visible. In parts of the Arctic and subarctic world, dogs eventually helped people hunt, pull supplies, and travel across terrain where wheels were nearly useless. Without them, communities would rely more heavily on boats, human porters, and in some regions, reindeer. People would still survive, but travel would be slower and more seasonal. Trade would concentrate along rivers and coastlines. Some inland communities would remain isolated for longer. Dogs would not decide whether humans could live in these places. They would influence where life was easiest. As towns became cities, the missing partnership would appear again through security. There would be no dogs guarding homes, warehouses, livestock pens, or city gates. Cities would compensate with more watchmen, heavier doors, and mechanical alarms. Armies would lose a useful tool as well. Dogs have been used to protect camps, track enemies, and locate people in difficult terrain. Wars would still be fought. Empires would still rise. But more soldiers would be needed for patrols and nighttime security. Some ambushes might succeed where they once failed. Some escaped enemies might never be found. Most wars would still depend on leadership, supplies, numbers, and technology. But across thousands of battles, even small differences could redirect history. By the modern era, machines would replace many of the jobs dogs once performed. Cameras would protect homes. Motion sensors would detect movement. Vehicles would transport supplies. Drones and robots would search dangerous areas. The absence of dogs might even push certain technologies to develop faster. Governments could invest earlier in chemical detection devices. Farmers might create mechanical herding systems sooner. Rescue teams could depend more heavily on microphones, cameras, and robots. But machines would not replace dogs perfectly. After earthquakes, explosions, or building collapses, rescuers would have fewer ways to locate survivors hidden beneath debris. Searches could take longer. Some missing people might never be found. The modern world would be more technologically dependent, and in some situations, less flexible. But the greatest difference might not involve hunting, farming, war, or technology. It might be emotional. In this world, the idea of a dog as a member of the family never exists. There is no animal waiting beside the door when someone returns home. No dog growing up beside a child. No guide dog helping a blind person move through a crowded city. No service dog trained to recognize a medical emergency. No therapy dogs visiting hospitals, schools, or disaster zones. Humanity would still form close relationships with animals. Cats might become even more common inside human homes. Horses could become stronger symbols of loyalty and friendship. Some cultures might breed other animals for companionship, but none would perfectly replace the dog. Dogs became unusual because they could fill many roles at once. They could hunt with us, guard us, travel with us, work beside us, and then return home and become part of the family. A world without dogs would still have nations, cities, computers, aircraft, and satellites. It would still look like our world. But beneath the surface, countless details would be different. Some migrations would happen later. Some communities would grow more slowly. Some trade routes would form elsewhere. Farming would require more labor. Security would depend more heavily on walls, guards, and machines, and millions of homes would contain an empty space no one in that world would know was empty. Because the greatest effect of dogs was never one single job, it was the combination. Dogs did not build our cities. They did not invent agriculture. They did not create civilization. But for thousands of years, they protected and assisted the people who did. Without them, humanity would still build the modern world. We would just reach it more slowly, less safely, and entirely alone. Thank you for watching, and an extra special thank you to everyone who has liked, subscribed, and supported the channel. If you enjoyed this journey through history, be sure to join us for the next episode. Until then, keep wondering, what if history had been rewritten?